Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Flakes podcast. And we are going to be live on YouTube with this one as well as we talk to professional skier Cody Townsend. He's joining us today, and we're going to talk everything about weather, snow, skiing, his 50 project, and anything else that comes up throughout the conversation. So Cody, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, BA.
Yeah, no problem. So we have something in common. We both live in the Tahoe Basin and do a lot of our skiing there. It's our home base where we do most of our skiing. And you're there right now, right?
Yeah, no, back home for a little bit, suffering through the dry period like we all are, and reading you every day for signs of hope. How does it feel to be like an arbitrator of hope for an entire region? Like, we either read your stuff and be like, oh my God, there's hope on the horizon, or oh my God, we're going to be sitting through this. How does that feel?
Well, when I'm an arbiter of hope, it feels really good. But what's really stressful is being the arbiter of bad news. I hate being that guy during dry spells every day. Like, sorry, nothing. Sorry again today. It's challenging. And we were talking about it actually on this week's podcast with the other forecasters. We were like, it's not like you're on the Weather Channel and you're like, well, it's not snowing in California, but wow, look at this snow coming over here. Like, we're micro forecasters for one zone. And if it's a dry spell for 4 to 6 weeks, you only have bad news. I don't have much else to talk about. So,
This is true.
So, but when it's good snow, like December, I was so busy, I was pulling my hair out, and I had a big smile every day writing my posts. And you get super busy, but you love it because you're telling everyone about how amazing it's going to be. So it's
Totally.
Night and day.
No, there's definitely just this tone that you can get from like reading and writing, and I mean, I love it because it's kind of like you're almost like your daily read. And man, when we were getting it in December, it was just like every day you were posting every day, and it was so you're just like it's all sharing in the excitement of a massive blizzard. I mean, like that's what I really find so special about Tahoe. There's a lot of great things, but I've not really seen the storms that we get in other places. The closest I've seen was I was in Kashmir, Kashmir, India, and there we got 3 meters of snow in 3 days, so like 9 feet, and that was the closest. And you're in like a lodge in a hotel while that's happening, to see like the volume of snow and the raging blizzards that we get in Tahoe. A lot of other places that are very snowy, you're in a cabin or living a much lower place. You're not like at the base of the mountain. And then two, it's just like we can get those storms. I get dumped 6 feet of snow in 24 hours or 48 hours. And it's fun. Like they're fun things to like experience.
It's the good and bad of living next to the coast. You need two things for big snow. You need an ocean or a moisture source, and you need relatively warm air to hold that moisture and transport it into the mountains. The flip side of that is you have to deal with snow levels. So
yes, definitely. The old maritime
we get these big
snowpacks.
storms, yeah, and then you go out east of here, they don't have, this clouds are drying out as they head that way, and the air is too cold to hold as much moisture as we see here in California. So they get lighter, more powdery snow, but they don't get 2, 3, 4 inches of liquid in a storm. Yeah. So it's different, but higher snow ratios, they can still get just as much snow with less water. So that's why people head to the Rockies for epic pal dumps. But that leads into my first question then. What was your deepest powder day ever? Where and when?
I mean, it's actually kind of a tough one because I've had a lot of deep powder days. I'm pretty lucky as a pro skier to be able to chase storms and chase powder days. And especially when your goal is to film a powder segment, you get to chase it. But there's one day, actually 2 days in a row, that I specifically remember, and it was the magic that you're talking about, and that was actually up at Stevens Pass in Washington. We got 48 inches overnight, and it was like 2% moisture, so it was that kind of coastal absolute dumping, but just the magic of it being super cold. And it was that kind of trenching where you're just skiing straight down and not having to fabricate turns to get like snow up in your face. You're literally just like directing your body, and you're just going completely white out. You're in the full white room, blinding yourself. Like, I remember at one point I was setting up for a shot where it's like typical kind of like 4 turns straight at the camera, And the last like two turns, it was so deep that even in the middle of my turn, like the deep point, coming out of that middle point where you're starting to extend and rise back up, I was still blinded and completely getting face shots. It was like just, it was pretty much felt like waist deep, and it was just blowing straight over your head. And I remember like having to listen for the click of a shutter from the cameraman, the photographer, Grant Gunderson, to kind of figure out where I was and if I was getting too close to them, and I had to stop because I could hear it going brr, brr, and I was getting closer and closer, just like not, you know, being able to see, and like pull up right before I get there, just full from just the hearing of how close I was getting. It was insane. Did we actually, there's video footage of it and photos. It's an old Solomon Freeski TV episode. I think it was like Pacific Northwest, the Battle of Pacific Northwest. I forget the exact ones, but it was like 10 years ago, and it was incredible. They actually got a cover of Powder Magazine, my very first cover ever from that storm. So it was a very memorable couple days up in Stevens Pass. But I mean, there's a lot of other ones. I've been pretty lucky. Had some crazy deep ones in Japan. Some I've had some good ones. There was 2020 here. I had a really deep day in Tahoe. So I've been pretty fortunate to get a lot of deep days around the world.
That when the pandemic hit in March.
Yeah, it was so the day that the ski areas closed, we had that all of a sudden we had such a bad winter. And the days that ski area closed, it had dumped that night. I remember it was March 15th because my birthday was March 14th. I had was going to go out with friends, and then we were like, maybe it's not a good idea. And the resort just closed today. And so hung out, and then went out there with Ming, Poon, and Travis Ganong. And we're like, yeah, let's go just tour. And it was like unbelievably deep that day. And that was before anyone was like, you all got to stay home. And, you know, you can't be like hurting yourself or anything. So we didn't really know better yet. And we definitely reveled in that pow day that we had. It was pretty sweet.
And I don't do too much backcountry skiing, so I mostly do resort skiing. And so I remember it was like this. It was like this 6-week dry spell. It wasn't snowing, like you said. And then this huge, I was tracking it since probably the middle end of February. I was like, this big storm series is coming the second week of March. This big storm series is coming. And it hit, and I was like, oh, we're going to get 4 to 6 feet of snow. And then I get to the mountain the next day. They're like, oh, we're shutting down for COVID. I was like, no.
Yeah, totally. No, that was really that's where it's very advantageous to be a backcountry skier and know kind of the backcountry around here very well. So I remember I was getting hit up left and right from people in my DMs and just like people that really had probably no business going in the backcountry being like, where do I go backcountry skiing in Tahoe? I'm like, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you, because it just snowed a lot. There is some high Abbey danger out there, and you got to know where to go and be safe. And I remember having a few really good days in a row. It was really fun.
Yeah, I think part of my problem is I'm a super risk averse person. So I always think of the worst possible scenario, everything I do in my life, right? So, and I have high anxiety issues too. So when it comes to backcountry skiing, I've been invited a lot. I get invited all the time, just being in the ski resort industry and knowing people like you and my friends who do backcountry skiing, and people have invited me a lot. But I have this fear of drowning in the snow, or a fear of getting covered in an avalanche. And it's so strong that I've only been cat skiing a couple of times and backcountry a couple of times. It grips me with fear. So what you do, I do admire it, because I know it takes a different kind of personality to do risky things, especially from the viewpoint of people like me.
Yeah, totally. And you know, the thing is with backcountry skiing, and there is legit danger out there, and there's a lot of things that are just very casual danger. Like if you hit a tree stump and twist your ankle and you can't really ski out of there, all of a sudden you're talking about a wildland rescue and, you know, trying to self-rescue yourself out of those situations. So everything becomes magnified because there's not help nearby. But like one of the things that I think is the beauty of it is once you start to learn backcountry skiing, you learn terrain management, you learn the snow packs and whatnot, you can do it in a very safe, mellow way. Like we have places here in Tahoe where I feel comfortable in almost any avalanche conditions going in, because there's a lot of trees and it's like 25 degrees, so below the typical 30-degree avalanche. angle that is 30 to 45 degrees is where most avalanches happen. So, and it has no overhead hazard. And so you manage your things and you can do it relatively safely. And, you're still thinking about a lot of other things. And, you do have to have a lot of experience, the right partners. And, it's not just like hiking on a trail with your friends. Like you're truly out in the mountains with danger. And you're also doing something that is more risky. When you're hiking, you're not like flying down the mountain. When you're skiing, you kind of are. So that's what I do like about backcountry skiing so much, is there's so much different levels of enjoyment of it. Like whether it's just a mellow 25-degree pow run, or it's doing something steep and exposed and pushing you on the edge of your limits.
I'll continue to watch your videos and admire it from the screen, I think, because the other part of being in our world, the ski world and ski resort media, and you're the same way, I'm sure, is whenever people do get in those situations, have to get rescued, or they do get caught in an avalanche and perish, we hear about all the stories.
Yep.
We're paying and we're tuned in all the time. So just always aware that that risk is out there. And so for sure, everyone should definitely be highly trained and go with a friend that has experience like you into those areas that you're talking about, for sure.
Definitely.
So I know all eyes are on you with the 50 project. In the last couple of years, I hear a lot of skiers, obviously everyone at OpenSnow, everyone's talking about these videos as they come out, especially ones with the segments that are really fun or get a lot of traction or go viral. But how did you get started with the 50 project? Do you want to just tell us what it is, how you got started, and where you're at right now? I think you said you're on
Yeah.
mountain around 36.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the 50, it was a dream of mine that kind of started around like 2016 or so. So we're just kind of an idea that started popping up in my head. My majority of my career was a very free ski, downhill oriented part of being a skier. I was an alpine ski racer for a long time, then I transitioned to being a professional free skier, and most of my stuff was, snowmobile, cat, or heli access, and it was all about downhill performance. And then I got to a point in my career where I was kind of like, in a certain way, bored with it, and not bored, but maybe just less challenged by it, or not as inspired by that style of skiing. And I saw this whole other world out there that I didn't really know about, and that was kind of the human powered approach, the camping in the mountains for an extended period of time, and expedition style skiing, and just skiing in a kind of unique way where instead of just getting flown to the top of a mountain and skiing down in 3 minutes and then going to the next thing, you're working for weeks on end to climb one line and ski back down it. And I started to become fascinated with that and really inspired by it, and really just like interested in that world, and started thinking of the 50 classics. And I looked at that book, and a bunch of those lines kind of became dream lines for me. It was like, one day I would love to ski the Grand Teton, or the cover of the book is University Peak, and I think that's one of the greatest ski lines in the world from the way it looks. I'm like, man, to ski that one day would be insane. And so I just kind of kept picking up the book and thinking, like, man, I got the list keeps growing for this bucket list of mine to try and ski some of these lines in this book. And then I was like, well, why don't you just try and ski all of them? That'd be kind of cool. And then I realized at that point in my life too, I'm like, you're not ready for that. Like, you came from this free ski world, you don't know ropes, you don't know human powered approaches, like you barely tour as it is. For early portion of my life, I hated hiking up stuff. I'm like, no, this is waste of time. Like, I don't get as much downhill skiing in. So I knew I had to learn it. And I started setting out the next few years to really like involve myself and challenge myself in kind of the technical backcountry skiing, expedition style skiing. And really, it was about 2017 is when I went and did Denali with friends. Like, it was just literally a friend's trip, and I kind of had in the back of my mind that this project could be something to do one day. So I actually specifically skied the Mesner Couloir without telling a single soul. Like, nobody around me knew that this was a potential dream of mine. And I kind of set it out as like, hey, if you can ski Denali from the summit and ski the Mesner Couloir, maybe this is something you should do. And I did it. I actually skied it solo. Even though it was with friends, they went down another route called the Orient Express, and skied it. It was one of the best runs of my life. Like it was absolutely unbelievable skiing a 5,500 foot couloir, starting at 19,500 feet and skiing at 10 at night with the sun still barely above the horizon because it's June in Alaska. And just like this, I don't know, it almost felt spiritual of just being on the side of this mountain by yourself, skiing this gigantic run. There's no run in California that has that much vert pretty much. Well, maybe there is down on the east side, but for the most part, something like that is just, it's bananas. And then I was like, all right, this is something you're going to do. And then the next, I really didn't actually announce it till 2019 because I spent 2018 kind of putting the pieces together, putting the idea together, talking to my wife a bunch about it because I knew it was going to be a very risky project and I knew there's a lot of hazards involved with it. And I also knew that if I put it out there, then once I announce that this is my goal, like I'm going to be pretty committed to this for the next few years. So yeah, 2019, announced it to the world, said I'm going to try to do this. No one's actually has ever skied all 50 of the 50 classic ski descents from the book that Chris Davenport, Penn Newhart, and Art Burrows wrote. They put it out in 2010, and all the lines have been skied at least once, but no one skied all of them. Some still only have one descent in history, and I set out to try and do it, and then created the video series alongside it. And yeah, now we're 3 years in, 36 lines down, and it's been a hell of a journey. Yeah, it's gotten really popular. It's kind of wild how crazy big it's gotten. It's like the #1 winter sports web series right now, and it's been pretty cool to see that reception and the fact that I'm showing human powered approaches and in this way, and I think it's influencing a lot of people in a positive way. And yeah, here we are, 3 years later, 14 lines left.
So when you get one of these lines you want to ski in your head, do you have to do it? Is it like there's no
Yes.
question? Like once it's on that list, you'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, like for the years when I had the idea, like there was this idea and I was like, oh, that'd be a good idea and that'd be kind of cool. But I didn't know about actually doing it and what would really go into it. And then it got to this point, and the reason why I fully committed to it was I got to a point where it was like, you're going to regret it the rest of your life if you don't try, because this idea has been marinating in your head now for 2 years and you like can't get it out of your head. And so for me, like I'm that kind of person, once it just kind of embeds into my head, like a song getting stuck in your head, if that line just plays over and over and over, like I am not going to back down until I at least try to accomplish this or challenge myself or go out there and fail and turn around and say, you know what, no, that wasn't what I could do, or it's out of my abilities, or just didn't get the luck, or it's too dangerous. And I'm totally fine with that, but I need to try. And so that was definitely the kind of the genesis of the project, was that I realized I was like, I'm going to regret when I'm older, I'm going to look back on it and I'm going to regret it if I don't try.
So how much work is this that we're not seeing? I mean, obviously, it's not just you're throwing a pair of skis, a camera, and a buddy in your car and driving over to a peak and skiing it for these productions. How much work really is it when you say, I want to go ski this line for the next episode? How many people are involved, and how much work is that from the day you decide what you want to do?
Let's put it this way. I started a small business with friends, and it was like just totally in our, garages and in our living rooms. And, the Arcade Belts, which is now 10 years in, we've got like 13, 14 employees, and it's a very established business. But like starting your own business is really hard. And this project makes starting your own business look easy for me. Like the comparison between it, like the first year of this project, like it was just me pretty much running from all the proposals to sponsors to get the funding, all the ideas behind every single storyline, the idea of how we were going to film this, the shooting in the field and like almost directing in the field of being like, hey, we need to get this shot, we need to get this to build up this storyline because this line is such and such. I mean, the story of it is going to be this, and then also researching the line, place I've never been there before, establishing the safety, establishing the route, going and doing it and accomplishing it. And then from there, then it comes into logging all the footage, shipping it off to an editor, writing a synopsis of like what all the footage looks like and what the storyline should be, and then going through like 4 or 5 different edits before we publish. And then publishing, it doesn't even remotely stop there. Publishing takes so much work, sending out all the assets to the sponsors, the teasers, the photos, properly labeled, pushing it out on social media. Like it just like it was the busiest I've ever been in my life that first year. Like to the point I was like, I'm not going to survive if I continue doing this. And I was talking to like mentors of mine and other filmmakers and like Mike Douglas when I told him about the idea, and he's like, dude, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to keep up. It almost takes knowing how intricate making a film can be. And here I was making 23 episodes in one season. We pretty much had one episode for every 2 weeks of a year. And it was nuts. And it continues to be nuts, though I've actually been able to get some more assistance and also learned how to do it. You learn through the experience and you get better at it and stuff. So it's been a hell of a project. Like the research and the skiing and the climbing of the line, that's the fun part, but it's hard to show everything else that goes into it. I don't even know if I could calculate how many hours per day goes into it, but like the first couple of years, it was like literally every day on the computer working to get this project to the world.
So dozens of people, hundreds of hours just to make one episode, basically, and it's your whole life right now.
Yeah, totally. Except for I didn't have dozens of people. It was me, Bjarne, and an editor.
Oh, okay.
So like that was it. It was pretty much I was doing everything. But now I've got I brought in like an agent, a producer, Brian Cole, to help me out on that. Brought in some other people, like just kind of I've learned how to delegate a little bit better than just trying to make this whole thing happen myself.
So when you get up top and you're on a line that you've never skied before, especially the one that is the steepest that you've skied, when you're looking down, what is going through your mind? Are you at all scared? Are you just extremely excited? What's going through your mind?
I mean, generally scared. If it's like a gnarly, steep, exposed line with, like not the greatest conditions, like if you're not scared, there's something wrong. That I think with sports stars and when people look at what we do, and you can see it's like we're nuts and we're crazy and this is super extreme and you're laying your life on the line and you're like, or that we have no fear. And you're like, no, like you know how to manage fear, you know how to harness fear and use it to your advantage. And quite often, like if I'm in a situation like I haven't skied this line, the conditions are weird, it's super steep and exposed, what I try to do is draw back on prior experiences, draw back on micro moments in my life that replicate what I'm doing right there. And that's why like year one was actually pretty tough. And I think I was pretty nervous and scared because like I remember going to the Sphinx in Alaska, and I'd spent a decade skiing in Alaska, but I'd never skied the steeps of Alaska, which is just unbelievably steep. It's not comparable to anything I've ever been to. And I'd always skied those steeps in powder snow and you're able to go super fast down it. But all of a sudden skiing in like absolute hard pack where ice axes are absolutely necessary to climb up it, and being for 3 or 4 hours on a face super exposed and then turning around, putting your skis on and skiing back down. Like I had no prior experience to draw back on. And I remember being really, really nervous and having to like almost like make up experiences like what can you compare this to? I'm like, I got nothing to compare this to. So that first year was really formative and making it easier as I go along, of drawing from prior experience to learn how to ski when it's a 55 degree, 60 degree slope and it's absolutely hard pack and you've got 3,000 to 4,000 feet of air below you. Like a fall is absolutely fatal. So I'm definitely scared.
I'm getting the tingles in my fingers just listening to you talk about it. I couldn't even get near that, but that's what makes it so much fun to watch your episodes and watch you guys ski in these super steep slopes. It's just, we can't wrap our minds around even getting to that point where we're looking down and skiing it.
Totally. The
So
camera never does it justice either. Like we do a good job of giving justice, but the camera cannot do it justice. The emotion and the look, it just looks different when you're on it. And when you're like climbing up something that steep, and I always like, you got your ice axes in, and all of a sudden you look down and you look down, but just in between your feet, and you're just looking down 3,000 feet, and you can see someone below you in between your like feet. And you're like, oh God, like this is quite steep, and that feeling is, and at first I was definitely more nervous about it, but now I've come to like understand it and how to get through that, and know that like the likelihood of falling is actually very, very low. You're more worried about something falling down on top of you with overhead hazard, and you just you work your way through it mentally and use your fear to move forward, to energize you and to get through it.
So I had the guys at OpenSnow, well, the crew, guys and gals, send over some questions, and I have 2 specific questions they sent me for certain episodes that they wanted to get your take on. Number 1, in the Mount St. Elias episode, or Elias, sorry, how freaked out was everyone as those wet slides came down the exposed cliffs and drainage you had to climb out of?
Pretty damn freaked. That was my closest call, I would say, in my life, when it came to something where you kind of feel out of control. I like to seek control when you're in the mountains, and seek refuge, and know where your escape routes are, know where your safe spots are, not take risk of something potentially coming down on top of you. Like you're always gonna have risk in the mountains, but you can mitigate it quite well, quite often. And being clipped out at the bottom of a 2,000 foot couloir with like what you feel like is a nuclear bomb about to go off. Like I equate it to being you're in a room, and there's a bomb, and it's on a timer, and it's going to go off, but you have no idea what's left on that time. Like the display is blank. So, but it's going off. So you kind of like, I got to get out of here, and I got to get out of here quick, but it could go off any second. And so being at the bottom of that was definitely really, really, it was scary. And it was weird. I actually didn't have as much fear as I thought I was. I was more just bummed. I was more like bummed with being in that situation and putting myself in that situation, and just like I was embarrassed by it. But then you think on your feet. We used some research that we had done before we went up on the mountain to know that there was a potential escape route up to our skiers right, that if we could climb this like steep, super sketchy gully and get to a ridge line, at least on a ridge line or on a high point, and we can make a decision from there, but at least we're in a safe zone. And we climbed that super sketchy steep gully. It was like one of the scarier climbs I've ever been. Like imagine like rock climbing, but in roller skates. That's what climbing a shale gully is like. And you got 500 feet of cliff below you. And you're just like, I mean, I remember just like you were getting through the shale, and then there was just ice underneath it. And you were just like, my boots are sliding out. You'd grip onto a rock to hold on to it, and then the rock would just start pulling out of the wall on top of you, and so you'd actually have to hold the rock up so it wouldn't hit your like foot and take out your foot and make you slide. But so that was scary, but we knew it was the way to the safe route. And then getting up there and watching the slides starting to come down, it's just like, oh my God, that was way too close of a call. And yeah, luckily, we used our mountain sense, we used our research, and we got ourselves out of that situation, but wasn't proud of it.
All right, so let's flip from cold and snow to the heat in the desert as we go to the next question, which is in the Alex Honnold episode in Death Valley. Why did you guys do that in the middle of the day? And that's a pretty famous clip, I think. I know a lot of people watched that one, and they saw you guys sweating and it looked like you were getting pretty parched. So why'd you do that in the middle of the day when it was the hottest?
Yeah, I know. I wish you could tell more of this backstory. I need to tell this backstory more out, because like so many people are just like shredding me in the comments, and like wearing black, and they're like, "You idiot! Why the hell are you wearing black?" And you're like, actually, there's a lot of research that shows that the color of your outfit doesn't have that big of an effect. Like the Bedouin in the deserts in the Middle East, they wear full black outfits all the time. Like that's their cultural wear. So it's like the color of it, it doesn't have that big of an effect. And there's actually some good research out there. But starting in the middle of the day wasn't to end up being the best decision. But here's my justification for why we did. So uh, I had called Alex and I was like, hey, I've had this idea to try and go from low to high. You know, plenty of people do it, but I just want to give it a try. And I know Alex is into Sufferfests, and he was like, I'm game. And as I called friends like Emily Harrington and Adrian Ballinger, Jimmy Chin, I'm like, you know, you guys have all skied with him. I haven't been able to ski with him. And they're like, oh, he'll be fine. He sucks at skiing, but he'll be fine. Well, we went up the like 3 or 4 days before. I went and climbed it and summited and skied down with just Bjarne and I. We did it kind of as an insurance thing in case we weren't able to accomplish the low to high mission. We wouldn't have to recuperate and then go do it again. It was like, let's just go get it done. So it's checked off the list and then we can try the low to high thing. Well, in that, I discovered some just absolutely heinous conditions. Like it was really warm during the day and it would get slushy and then all of a sudden really bad punch crust. Well, a lot of Alex's friends were just telling me like, whatever you do, don't kill Alex. That's your goal. Do not kill the world's best free soloist on some stupid ski mission. And when I started to see this punch crust, I was like, dude, like this is actually tricky. Like I ate shit like 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, I don't want to end Alex's climbing season either, like blow his knee or anything, or just do some horrible injury because it's really bad conditions. So I started working backwards from there. I'm like, we need to ski this when it's like slushy, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And now I started working backwards because we were planning to originally leave at like 6 at night and bike through the night and then try and hike in the morning and probably end up skiing down at like 5 or 6 o'clock. Well, that's when I found that punch crust conditions. So I moved it back earlier strictly because I was like concerned about Alex. And in that moment, I completely disregarded myself, just thinking about his safety up on the mountain. I also looked at it, I was like, you know, I bike in the summer a ton. I bike in the heat. I'm actually generally pretty good with the heat for some reason. And I'm like, I'll be fine. The second mistake I made, which I had no idea about until after this, is that your body has to acclimatize to heat, just like you have to acclimatize to altitude. And your body and your blood flow goes through like an actual physical transformation over a course of a week. To acclimatize to heat. And that's why there's actually a lot of data that shows these like random heat waves that are coming out of the blue when it's been generally on the cooler side and then it gets super hot, like drastic heat increase. There actually is a huge increase in heat related deaths during those heat waves if it comes during a cold period because people aren't acclimatized to it. So me being a skier, I was not acclimatized to 98-degree heat. I live in my van and climbing mountains in the dead of winter, and it's like at warmest 35 degrees. And Alex, meanwhile, lives in Vegas, and he bikes and he climbs, and he's in 70 and 80-degree heat in the winter, and he was more acclimatized to it. So we set off, and it was pretty much within a couple hours, I knew something was really off. You know, I wasn't sweating, I was feeling awful, and it was about 4 hours in that I just completely collapsed and had, you know, pretty much heat stroke and was really, really close to something way more dangerous than that. So I'm glad I stopped. We had definitely the safety and the fact that a van was there. We had water and ice and Pedialyte and all that stuff. And I was able to cool off pretty quickly, recover. And then when the sun went down, I kept riding. I think we rode about 100 miles that day or whatever, 40 of it. And then I got heat stroke and then rode another 60 miles, which again, probably was not the best idea, but yes, that's the long and short story. Actually, that's the long story of why we left at noon and why I got heat stroke. So,
all right,
you know, looking out for Alex and then not acclimatizing to heat.
So is there anything else you want to say about the 50? Because I want to get into a few other topics.
Yeah, let's go into something else.
All right. Well, everyone check out the 50 if you haven't already at skithe50.com. You're on peak number 36, so you've got another 15 episodes on the way, right?
Yeah. Well, 14 lines to be done. Who knows how many episodes? Because we do put out episodes where we don't accomplish it. And I think that's important to show that we don't always accomplish everything.
All right. So going back to the beginning of your career, how young were you when you knew you wanted to be a pro skier, and what did that mean to you then? And did you ever think this is where you'd be at now? How's that all
I
evolved?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be a skier when I was about 6 years old. I didn't know, how to be a skier or what a job was, but I like kids dream of being an astronaut or a fighter pilot or some firefighter. I was like, I'm gonna be a skier. It was the only dream I've really had my entire life, and it came to fruition. I worked my ass off at it and focused a lot and sacrificed a lot to make that happen. But that was my dream, and it was like it was the only thing I could think about when I'm from like 10 to like 18. Was like, how do you become a pro skier? And that changed a lot of different ways. Some points it was trying to be an Olympic racer, some points, and then became to be a free skier. For where I'm at now, no, I did not predict that I'd be now 38 years old and still a pro skier. Like I kind of always looked at like you just, get in a ski movie, be in the magazines, and then go get a real job. Not that this is a real job, but it still felt like something else would be, I would be able to be a pro and then you go do something else in life. But to now like be like, oh no, this is like your career, like this is your job, like this is the thing that you do. And being now professional skier for God, 15, no, 17 years now is pretty wild to me. And I definitely don't take it for granted. I think it's pretty amazing that I get to do what I love for a living, and get to share these stories and go skiing for a living, challenge myself, and to do cool stuff in the sport I love most.
So what's the biggest challenge you've had over this career that you've had to try to get through?
You can look at the 50 right now, and this is probably going to continue to be one of the biggest challenges. But I would say it was probably more when I was like 23, 24, 25 years old, around that range. I started to show up in ski movies, and I actually got like cut from ski movies. Like I literally would film for a year and then not show up in the ski movie because my performance was just not up to par. And then I started filming in other movies, and we got like one or two shots, and then I was like competing and I was doing pretty well, but not like winning. And I got to this point where I was like, are you just, that's what you're destined to be? Like you're not athletically talented enough. You're not a good enough skier to be at the top of the sport. You're going to be a B level skier at best, and maybe this career is going to be shorter than you think because you're just not going to be able to make it. And going through that, I think really did two things. One, it put me more in focus. Like, well, if you want to do that, you want to make this career, work harder at it, get better, train for this, and really put your focus into it. And then two, it really I remember this point where I've got cut from ski movies and it didn't seem like there was much on the horizon for me to be a pro skier. And I was like, well, do I go get a real job, start working on plan B? I'd graduated from college at that point. I was like, well, go find something else. And I remember thinking, just be like, no, like you can delay that. Like delay that for as long as you can. There's jobs out there. There's other careers out there. And this is what you've kind of worked for your whole life for, or dreamed your whole life for. Like just I don't want to stop skiing, even if it's like not in a professional level. Like you're going to center your life around skiing in some sort of way. So you might as well keep trying this pro skier thing and see if it works out. And as soon as I came to like almost peace with that and not, I almost like stopped trying as hard. I more focused on getting the work done that was necessary, and then skiing in a more relaxed way, not constantly trying to prove myself. It all of a sudden started to work. And I think there's something to be said for that. Is just I relaxed and I was like, hey, this is the sport you love. Just go out there, have fun, put in the work behind the scenes. But when you're out there, just like focus on having fun. And sure enough, like it all started clicking, and I started getting the chances and the opportunities, and I showed up and won awards for ski segments, and then it's all kind of worked out since then.
What's life like when you're back home, like you are right now in the Tahoe Basin? Are you able to get some sleep? Are you able to get out on the hill and just do some leisure skiing and that's not crazy?
Well, there's two things. One, there's an old saying: as a professional skier, the more famous you get, the less you ski. And there's a lot of truth to that because you end up having to do a lot more work for your sponsors and whatnot and showing up places. I don't think people understand like quite as much how often, if you want to be successful at this and earn a living, like you spend a lot of time on the computer, a lot of time in meetings, a lot of time putting pitches and proposals together, a lot of times doing research and on how to do better in your field of expertise, whether that's filmmaking or photography, or setting out for the day to do something. It's not just a go free ski day. Granted, we can still do that, but I try to treat this like a job, because it is a job. So you don't ski quite as much as you would think, being a professional skier. We still get to ski a lot, but not just as much as you'd think. Like every day I can just go bell to bell and go ski all day, and people just send money to me and I'm good to go. But then now I added on to, I have a kid, and I have a new 3.5-month-old, and that's definitely lessened the sleep and lessened the ski time. But it also has made it a little more special. Like every time I get to go out, I definitely feel that much more thankful, and just how fun it is. And then also I'm in that place in my life where like having a kid is unbelievably special. And to me, like making a few less turns really is like, it doesn't equate to seeing my child smile and for the first time and laugh for the first time. Like it's so awesome to see that stuff. It's so rewarding. So so yeah, no, I definitely get to still ski plenty of times. Sometimes it's more like in the sense of going training as opposed to just going free skiing. But like I did this morning, went out there with a very specific goal in mind, and it wasn't skiing for the pleasure of it because the conditions are awful right now, but it was, still great to get out there.
At some point, there's a turning point where your kids get old enough that they're skiing faster than you, which just happened to me this year with my 7-year-old, where she just flew past me on the mountain the other day. And I was like, oh, wow. This, here it comes. Now I'm going to be chasing them down the hill.
I really look forward to that day. Like I already forecast, like, dude, getting to ski with my son and his first time on skis. I'm like, this is going to be one of the greatest ski days of my life. And I've had a lot of great ski days, things that people work their entire life for. And I'm like, but skiing with my son, that's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So you and I have a love of weather, I think, too. I remember a few years ago, I can't remember exactly where you did this or how you did this, you'll know, but you were in a basement with like crazy scientists looking hair and outfit, and you had a chalkboard, I think, and you were
Yep.
trying to predict the weather for this upcoming season. So are you a closet meteorologist, or what was that video all about?
Yeah, so I'd like to think of myself as a closet meteorologist, but then I think what's been really cool, and what's really cool about OpenSnow, what you guys do, is that you've both taught me things about how to read the weather, but then also show me how little I know. So no, I like to think of myself as a closet meteorologist, and I do have to understand models and understand weather forecasting from a very, very specific point of view. That's not in the more generalized kind of look, like looking at specific elevations and wind directions and all the little details that you're looking at. And I try to understand it because it's important for my job, but like I also realize I don't know much. But yeah, that video, that was a funny video we did with Palisades to kind of promote the upcoming season, because everyone in the fall is freaking out about what kind of snow year it is. You know it more than anyone. Everyone wants, like, what's this winter going to be like? You're like, I don't know, it's 4 months out. And we all look for all the little signs, like the caterpillars, do they have like the big stripe, or the squirrels gathering nuts, do they know? And then the farmer's almanac. And so I was just kind of spoofing on the fact that we all are so obsessed with these long-term forecasts, and they actually don't matter, and just don't worry about it, because the snow will come and it's up to you to either enjoy it or be bummed with it. So with whatever does come. So yeah, that was, my thing. And I people always ask, what do you think the winter's gonna be like? I don't know, but I'm gonna have fun. I'll figure it out. Like, even if it's like what we're doing right now when there's terrible snow conditions, I'm still skiing and still enjoy it. Yes, a powder day is more enjoyable, but like, man, just going out and skiing, wind in your face, and the sun in the air, and it feels good. So I I try and make sure people like don't just obsess over powder days and the next storm, even though we all kind of do a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You got to learn to enjoy it, especially here in California, where the weather's so up and down. We do typically get these dry spells in the middle of the winter. And like you said, I think my forecast for this year. So what we do is we go back and look at the current conditions versus where they were at the same time of year in other seasons, and then try to match things up as close as we can and say, okay, well, what happened that season? Okay, well, maybe that'll happen this season. And I think this year I had a forecast of 90 to 100%, average to just below average, looking at everything I saw. But man, if we end up in that range, what a way to get it, right? So record snow in October, one of the driest Novembers, the record for December, looks like the driest January in history. And so if I think we're at 72% of average snowfall. So we pull out another 20% of our annual snowfall in March and hit that 95 to 100%. But like you're saying, next year, what's it going to do this winter? What does it matter if I said 90 to 100? You don't really care.
Totally.
You care more about the individual storms. You're going to be still upset when it's not snowing in January, whether it hits 100% or not.
Totally. And ultimately, like, we're lucky enough to just go skiing and enjoy it and have a good day. Like, that's what I think is the beauty of this sport, is like, no matter what, like if I'm taking out GS skis and carving groomers, like I'm having a good time. If I'm taking my POW skis out or touring in the backcountry, I'm having a good time. As rarely do you ever get done from a day of skiing and be like, that was not worth it. That was terrible. You might have some terrible conditions and be like, well, that wasn't as fun as it could have been, but you're still kind of having fun. You're not working. So
Yeah,
ultimately,
exactly.
like I try and make sure you can adjust your attitude. You can't adjust the weather.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So everyone had a question as well. What side of they said what eyebrow or side of the beard should Brian shave to bring snow back to the West? So there's been an ongoing competition joke or kind of superstition thing I started several years ago, which is if we get these long 6-week plus dry spells, I'll sacrifice the beard. I let it grow all winter just in case we have these dry spells, and then I shave it off. And just to say thank you for the 3 feet of snow that we get when it finally snows again. So they were wondering your thoughts on, I guess let's just turn the question around the superstitions in general.
Yeah, no, definitely back in the day, I remember doing like ski burning parties. That's the original kind of superstition, is like early season. There's nothing happening. You throw a Oler party, and then sacrifice a bunch of skis, just burn a bunch of skis, which, as we learn, is not burning plastic and wood and PTEX, probably not the best thing for climate change, even though it's a very small little dump in the bucket, but it's still, you got to realize you're like, maybe that's not the best thing to do. But I was definitely superstitious about that. Like the playoff beard, like the winter beard. I mean, there's something to be said for those kind of things. Like when I'm on a ski mountaineering trip and on an expedition, I let my beard grow out beforehand and I kind of let it go through that. And I do think there's I don't know, maybe it's just this mentality, like it focuses you. It's a daily reminder. So I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe when you see something in the horizon, you're going to have to just shave it off. Maybe you have to even shave it off and burn it to combined. Do it outside so it doesn't stink. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're into it, man, like I'm superstitions, like we all have our little ones, I think. And I think they're just like really good ways of focusing you. Like I have a superstition where I got to put my left sock on and my left ski boot on first every single time. And if I don't do it though, what I do know is my mind's not thinking correctly. If I all of a sudden slip my right boot in, I'm like, whoa, something's off. Like, and it's just a weird little thing. I don't think it brings me any more luck, but I do know if I put my right boot on, I might not be thinking straight that day. So factor that into your decisions.
And it gives us all something to do together. That's kind of fun. Helps us mentally get through these dry periods in the West.
Totally.
So beyond the 50, the 14 lines you have left, what is your other bucket list items you have, I guess, for your life or your career before you retire?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, first, I probably want to retire as a skier, or maybe retire as a professional skier of doing it, or maybe it just shapes a little bit, but I'm going to be a skier my whole life. That's what's amazing about the sport. Is not like, Tom Brady is retired from the NFL. Well, he's not playing football anymore. Like he doesn't get to play football. Like as a skier, it'd be like, I retired from being a professional. Cool. I'm going to go skiing today. Like it's just a different sort of definition there. As far as bucket list items, it's, people ask me already a lot, like, what are you going to do after the 50? I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I'm going to finish the 50. Like it's not been done, and it's not been done for a reason. Like it's really hard and could be really dangerous, and it could take me another 15 years to try and complete it. So I'm not really thinking past that, and I'm so focused on these lines that I have left that I don't even kind of have the opportunity to think about anything else. Like the things I kind of think about these days is more in the terms like I would love to go on a ski vacation with my wife and now my kid to like Japan or to Europe and go, like, literally just go ski for 2 weeks with no obligations to film, create content, or just go ski, something like that. I almost look forward to that because I don't think any of the travel I've really ever done for skiing has been purely just for pleasure. The closest I got was climbing Denali, but even then, that still kind of had a little goal in the back of my head. You're always, when we're traveling, you're shooting something, you're kind of working. And I know people think like, oh, it's not real work, but it takes something away from it when you are working, when you are standing there for a half hour waiting for a shot, you do 4 turns and then you hike back up 100 feet and do it again. You are working in your own sort of way. So I almost look at like ski vacations as on my bucket list to just to go out there with my family and go to cool places and just go skiing for the pure love of it.
So yeah, I could totally relate too, because not in the pro ski world, but just in the ski weather world and our ski media company. Joel and I've been doing this for 16 years, 11 years at OpenSnow. And like you said, people are like, oh, it's not a real job. You forecast the snow and then you go ski it in the afternoon. But like you said, you're always working. When you're at the mountain, you're talking to the marketing teams, you're building those relationships, you're taking photos of the snow, you're updating your Twitter to what you're seeing happen. And so there's no like just enjoy and relax type of thing. So you almost have to get out of, like you said, go to Japan, but get out of your zone where you're working and go somewhere else and travel to get away. So you can
Totally.
just take some turns and they're not work turns. So what is your favorite luxury item when you're doing these backcountry touring, climbing, hiking? Like what's the one thing you always have in your backpack that is extra weight, but you have to have it with you?
Down booties. But that's for like an overnight. If you're camping out there, like down booties are the nicest luxury item there is. And it's like, you've been hiking all day in your ski boots and being able to like take your ski boots off at the end of the day and get into these like super cozy, like they're the warmest, most comfortable things on the planet. And just like there's like clouds of warm air on top of your feet. It's just they feel so good. I cannot believe anyone that tries to winter camp and doesn't bring down booties. Like they're pretty small, they're pretty lightweight. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
You're still in your ski boots. It was actually Bjarne was for 2 years. I'm like, get some, and he's like, oh, I'm fine. And then he finally got some. He's like, oh my god, I can't believe I've been missing out on this. I'm like, yeah, dude, they're the best thing ever. So, yeah, I will not go into an overnight without um, down booties.
All right. So the final question I have for you is what words of wisdom do you have for everyone out there, adults, kids, about the backcountry, the outdoors? What are your words of wisdom for us as we get outside?
Go slow. Just if you want to, become a backcountry skier, if you want to learn something in the sport, just think in terms of years and decades. Like you can have a long life as a skier, and you can have a short life as a skier if you try and rush it. And that's where I like to, emphasize, the just dipping your toes in it, going for a very mellow tour on a low Avi day in a very sunny, warm place, and just experiencing what that feels like. And then, building from there. And then learning the mountains around you, learning all the aspects of avalanche safety, not only rescue, but terrain management, and just like every little detail about it. It's such an intricate and nuanced kind of science and art form together. And to me, it's just like a lifelong education. We say, and when we teach avalanche classes, is you never graduate from avalanche school. You are always learning. So to me, it's like that equates with just going slow, enjoying it, not focus on 100% the end all be all goal that you want to do, but just working on enjoying every day and learning every day while you're out there.
All right. Yeah, that's really good advice. And, it's just been really great having this talk with you. It's the first time you and I somehow living in the Tahoe Basin, not too far from each other and skiing, haven't run into each other yet. But I've
Totally.
always wanted to sit and just chat with you about weather and skiing and outdoors like this. And it's been great from one fellow mountain lover to another.
Yeah, totally, Brian. I mean, I was reading your stuff long before OpenSnow, and I remember like your original blog, and I was like, this guy's on it. He's doing really good stuff with weather forecasting, and I've learned a lot from how to forecast from you, and it's been really cool to. I felt like I've known you for years, and yet we really haven't even truly met. But it's fun working with you and working with the OpenSnow crew. St. Elias last year, we had one of the OpenSnow forecasters forecasting directly for us up on the mountain. And it was
Mhm.
huge. Like it was amazing because you probably know better than anyone that forecasting for an individual space is a really localized area is really, really difficult. And these tiny little things can change a forecast around. And to forecast for a mountain like Mount St. Elias, which has a whole different set of factors with the altitude and the proximity to the ocean, glaciers, all this stuff is really difficult to forecast for. And uh, I was pretty amazed because we had a guy that had never forecasted for that zone. And for like 14, 15 days on the mountain, he was spot on. And there was only like 2 times when he wasn't like nailed it perfectly. And that's unbelievable for a high altitude expedition. The to forecast that accurately was, I was really, really impressed. The whole team was. We were like, man, we'd wake up in the morning, you're like, dude, he nailed it. Again, there's clouds right at this level. The winds are exactly from this point, and the temperature is on. And so it's been really cool for me in this project to be working with you guys, because you guys are a huge help to making it successful.
Yeah, and you for us, it's great to get the feedback, and you're the perfect person to build our technology around, because we're trying to do all that to this remote location, pinpoint forecasting to make it perfect for every hourly condition to a T for those remote areas, like you're saying. And so we can, trying to help you helps us fine tune everything we're building. And I can totally relate to what you were saying about being in college and thinking about what you wanted to do with your career, because I was in college in meteorology school, sitting there going, I love storm chasing. I've been obsessed with snow and storms since I was a kid. And that's why I went to meteorology school. But I don't want to be a weatherman. I don't want to be on TV. I don't really want to sit in a cubicle with the weather service. All I want to do is chase storms. But back in the 90s, there wasn't really such a thing as micro forecasting jobs. And so it's been a lot of fun to build this business with Joel. And we've like, kind of like you, created something that wasn't there. And now we're able to do what we were obsessed with as an actual job. And so we're happy to help you, and then happy to watch you ski it and enjoy watching all your films.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So,
No, it's been cool to see you guys' progression over the years. It's been, yeah, I think what you've done in the sport is really cool. So good on you.
all right. Well, thanks so much for being an athlete. Thanks for sitting down with me today to chat. It was super interesting, a lot of fun. I know people are going to enjoy it. And we look forward to talking to you soon and seeing your upcoming lines that you're going to be skiing.
Sounds good, BA. It was good to chat with you.